Arjun lived in a small one-room apartment tucked away in the heart of Mumbai's crowded suburbs. The walls were thin, and the noise from the streets below never seemed to stop. But it was home. His life was far from easy. Every morning he woke up at the crack of dawn, his body still aching from the previous day's deliveries. He would quickly wash his face, drink a cup of weak tea made by his mother, and head out into the city with his trusty bike. The only thing that kept him connected to his dreams of a better tomorrow. At 23 years old, Arjun had already seen more than his fair share of struggles. His father had passed away when he was just a teenager, leaving behind a mountain of medical bills. Since then, it had been up to Arjun to support his family, his aging mother, who suffered from arthritis, and his younger sister Priya, who dreamed of becoming a teacher someday. Though their circumstances were tough, Arjun refused to let despair take over. He worked tirelessly as a delivery boy for a local food service company, pedaling through traffic-choked streets and narrow alleys to deliver meals to people who rarely even looked him in the eye. Despite his hardships, Arjun had a kind heart. He always greeted customers with a smile, no matter how rude or dismissive they might be. Sometimes, if a customer didn't have enough money to pay for their order, he'd quietly cover the difference himself, even though it meant skipping meals. Later, his co-workers often teased him for being too nice, but Arjun didn't care. He believed that every act of kindness, no matter how small, could make someone's day a little brighter. His bike, an old but sturdy model patched together with duct tape and determination, was both his workplace and his companion. It carried him through rainstorms and scorching heat, its tires worn thin from countless miles traveled. To Arjun, the bike wasn't just a means of transportation. It was a symbol of hope. As long as he had it, he knew he could keep fighting for his family's future. Evenings were the hardest part of his day. After finishing his last delivery, Arjun would return home exhausted, his legs sore and his clothes damp with sweat. But instead of complaining, he'd sit down with Priya and help her with her homework. Her laughter brought light to their tiny home, and her ambition gave him strength. One day, he promised her, we'll have a bigger house, and you won't have to study by candlelight anymore. But life wasn't all bad, Arjun found joy in the little things. A cool breeze after a long ride, the smell of freshly cooked dal his mother prepared, or the occasional thank you note left by a grateful customer. These moments reminded him why he kept going, even when the odds felt stacked against him. Little did he know, however, that his resilience and compassion were about to lead him toward an extraordinary event, one that would not only test his courage, but also change his life forever. It was a typical afternoon for Arjun. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the city streets. He had just picked up an order from a popular restaurant, a bag filled with steaming hot meals, and was heading toward his next destination. The address led him to a quieter part of town, where buildings stood closer together and the air carried the faint scent of spices wafting from nearby kitchens. As he navigated the narrow lanes on his bike, the usual hum of traffic faded into the background. For once, everything seemed calm. But that calm didn't last long. As Arjun turned onto the street where the delivery was supposed to go, something felt off. Thick black smoke curled into the sky, rising ominously from one of the buildings ahead. At first he thought it might be someone burning trash, but as he got closer, the truth became clear. There was a fire, and it was spreading fast. Flames licked at the windows of a 3-story apartment building, sending shards of glass raining down onto the pavement below. People were running out of their homes, some clutching children, others dragging suitcases or bags. The scene was chaos. "What happened?" Arjun asked a man who was frantically trying to call emergency services on his phone. "It's the second floor," the man shouted back, his voice trembling. "There's still someone trapped inside." Arjun froze for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around, expecting to see firefighters or police officers arriving, but there was no sign of help yet. The crowd gathered outside was growing larger by the second, but no one dared to step forward. Everyone was too afraid, too overwhelmed by the sight of the raging inferno. The sound of desperate cries pierced through the commotion. Arjun turned his head sharply, scanning the building until his eyes landed on a figure leaning out of a window on the second floor. It was a woman, her hands gripping the windowsill tightly as she tried to stay away from the flames creeping closer behind her. Her face was streaked with tears, and her swollen belly made it obvious that she was pregnant. She screamed for help, her voice cracking with fear and exhaustion. Without thinking twice, Arjun swung off his bike and placed the food bag carefully on the ground. His mind raced with questions. Should he wait for the authorities? What if they didn't arrive in time? What if this woman and her unborn child didn't survive because he hesitated? He shook his head, pushing those thoughts aside. This wasn't the time to doubt himself. Someone needed help, and he couldn't stand idly by. People in the crowd noticed him moving toward the building and shouted warnings. "Don't go in there," one woman cried. "You'll get yourself killed." But Arjun ignored them. He tightened the scarf around his neck to cover his mouth and nose, hoping it would protect him from the smoke. Then, with a deep breath, he stepped inside. The heat hit him like a wall. The air was thick and suffocating, filling his lungs with ash. Through the haze, he could barely make out the staircase leading upward. Every instinct told him to turn back, but he pressed on, focusing on the sound of the woman's cries. Step by step, he climbed higher, each movement deliberate despite the panic rising in his chest. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the faint wail of sirens, but he knew they wouldn't reach the scene in time. If anyone was going to save her, it had to be him. For a brief moment, Arjun wondered what his mother and sister would do if something happened to him. Would they understand why he risked everything for a stranger? Or would they blame him for being reckless? But then he remembered Priya's words from earlier that week. "Paya, you're the bravest person I know." With renewed determination, he pushed forward, determined to prove her right, one way or another. The fire raged around Arjun as he climbed the stairs, each step creaking ominously under his weight. The heat was unbearable, pressing against his skin like an invisible force trying to push him back. Smoke filled the narrow hallway, stinging his eyes and making it hard to breathe. He pulled the scarf tighter over his nose and mouth, but it did little to filter out the suffocating fumes. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from fear, but also from the sheer physical effort of moving forward. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around, to save himself while he still could. But the sound of the woman's cries kept pulling him upward. When he reached the second floor, the scene was chaos. Flames licked hungrily at the walls, devouring everything in their path. The ceiling above groaned under the strain, chunks of plaster falling dangerously close to where Arjun stood. Through the thick smoke, he spotted her, a pregnant woman leaning halfway out of a window, her face pale with terror. She clutched the windowsill tightly, her knuckles white from the effort. Her sobs echoed through the hallway, mixing with the crackling roar of the fire. "Help me," she screamed when she saw him. "Please help." Arjun didn't waste a second. He moved toward her, shielding his face with one arm as he pushed through the smoke. The floor beneath his feet felt hot, almost unbearably so, and he knew time was running out. If he didn't act quickly, the entire structure could collapse. Reaching her side, he grabbed her hand firmly, trying to offer some reassurance despite the panic building inside him. "I'm here," he said, his voice steady even though his insides churned with fear. "We'll get you out of here." The woman nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. She tried to pull herself away from the window, but her swollen belly made every movement difficult. Seeing this, Arjun acted fast. He positioned himself behind her, using his body to shield her from the flames as he guided her toward the staircase. Each step was agonizingly slow. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. One wrong move, and both of them could be lost forever. As they descended, the fire seemed to grow angrier, roaring louder as if determined to keep them trapped. A loud crash echoed above them. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, blocking their path. Arjun froze for a split second before realizing they were still far enough away to avoid being crushed. He glanced back at the woman, whose grip on his hand tightened. She was trembling, her breaths coming in shallow gasps. "We're almost there," he told her, his voice firm despite the uncertainty swirling inside him. "Just hold on." With no other option, they retraced their steps and found another route leading down to the ground floor. By now, Arjun's lungs burned from inhaling. The toxic smoke and sweat poured down his face. His legs ached with exhaustion, but he refused to give up. He focused on the rhythm of their footsteps, counting each one like a lifeline keeping them tethered to survival. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they burst through the front door into the open air. The cool breeze hit Arjun's skin like a blessing, and he nearly collapsed under the sudden relief of escaping the inferno. Behind him, the woman fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, but alive. People rushed forward to help her, wrapping her in blankets and guiding her to safety. As Arjun stepped aside, coughing violently and struggling to catch his breath, he looked back at the building. Just moments later, the upper floors collapsed, in a deafening roar, sending a cloud of dust and debris billowing into the sky. It was a grim reminder of how close they had come to disaster. Someone handed Arjun a bottle of water, and he drank greedily, his hands shaking. For the first time, since entering the burning building, he allowed himself to feel the magnitude of what had just happened. He hadn't thought about bravery or heroism. He'd simply done what needed to be done. And now, standing amidst the crowd, watching paramedics tend to the woman he'd saved, Arjun realized that sometimes the smallest acts of courage can change lives forever. The crowd outside erupted into cheers the moment Arjun emerged from the burning building, coughing and covered in soot. People clapped and shouted words of gratitude, some even patting him on the back as he stumbled toward a nearby bench to catch his breath. The woman he had saved, Mira, was being attended to by paramedics, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm evening air. Her husband, Rohan, stood beside her, tears streaming down his face as he repeatedly thanked Arjun for risking his life to save his wife and unborn child. Word of the dramatic rescue spread quickly. Within hours, local news channels arrived at the scene, their cameras rolling as reporters interviewed witnesses and captured footage of the charred remains of the building. Someone had recorded Arjun rushing out of the blaze with Mira leaning heavily on him, and that clip soon went viral online. Social media platforms lit up with posts praising the delivery boy hero. Strangers from all over the country began sharing the video, calling Arjun's actions nothing short of extraordinary. Despite the attention, Arjun remained humble. When a reporter approached him with a microphone, he shifted uncomfortably, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't do anything special," he said, brushing off the praise. Anyone would have done the same thing if they saw someone in trouble. His modesty only added to the public's admiration. Here was a man who risked everything, not for fame or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. As the sun dipped below the horizon, volunteers set up temporary shelters for those displaced by the fire. Neighbors brought food and water, while others helped sort through belongings salvaged from the wreckage. Amidst the organized chaos, Arjun sat quietly on the curb, staring at his battered hands. He hadn't realized how much damage the fire had done to his bike until now. It lay abandoned near the entrance of the building, its tires melted and frame warped beyond repair. This realization hit him hard. Without his bike, how would he continue working? How would he provide for his family? Rohan noticed Arjun sitting alone and walked over to him. Kneeling beside him, he placed a hand on Arjun's shoulder. "You saved my wife and our baby," Rohan said, his voice thick with emotion. "We owe you everything. Please let us help you." Arjun shook his head, embarrassed by the offer. "I don't need anything," he replied softly. "I'm just glad I could help." But Rohan wasn't willing to take no for an answer. He insisted on taking down Arjun's contact information, promising to find a way to repay him for his selflessness. Meanwhile, donations began pouring in from strangers touched by the story. A crowdfunding campaign was started by a group of college students inspired by Arjun's bravery. Within days, thousands of rupees were raised not just to replace his bike, but also to support his family. Back home, Arjun's mother and sister heard about the incident through neighbors and news reports. They rushed to the scene, tears in, their eyes as they hugged him tightly. Priya couldn't stop talking about how proud she was of her brother, while their mother whispered prayers of thanks that he had come back safely. For the first time in years, their tiny apartment felt full, not just with love but with hope. Yet amidst all the positivity, challenges lingered. Some of Arjun's co-workers grew jealous of the attention he was receiving, spreading rumors that he had staged the entire incident to gain sympathy. Others accused him of seeking publicity, claiming he didn't deserve the sudden outpouring of support. These accusations stung, but Arjun chose not to respond. He knew the truth, and that was enough for him. That night, as he lay awake thinking about everything that had happened, Arjun felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, he was overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who had rallied around him. On the other, he worried about what the future held. Fame was fleeting, and he knew life wouldn't magically become easier overnight. But one thought kept him grounded. He had made a difference today, and maybe, just maybe, that was all that mattered. The days following the fire were a whirlwind for Arjun. What started as a quiet life of delivering meals had suddenly turned into a media sensation, with his face plastered across newspapers, TV screens, and social media platforms. While many celebrated him as a hero, the sudden attention brought its own set of challenges, ones that Arjun hadn't anticipated. Reporters became a constant presence outside his home, camping out on the narrow street where he lived. Their cameras flashed, relentlessly, and their questions grew more intrusive by the day. "How does it feel to be called a hero?" one asked. Another pressed, "Do you think you'll quit your job now that you're famous?" Each question made Arjun uneasy. He wasn't used to being in the spotlight, and the pressure to say the right thing weighed heavily on him. His family struggled too. His mother found it hard to sleep with the noise outside, and Priya complained about not being able to study because of the commotion. At work, things weren't much better. Some of his co-workers resented the attention he was getting. They whispered behind his back, accusing him of exaggerating his role in the rescue, or even staging the incident for publicity. One colleague sarcastically remarked, "Looks like you're too busy being a celebrity to deliver orders now." These comments hurt, but Arjun tried to ignore them. He knew jealousy could make people say unkind things, and he didn't want to let negativity cloud the good that had come from the situation. Then, there was the matter of his bike, the faithful companion that had carried him through years of hard work. It was beyond repair, reduced to a charred frame after the fire. Without it, Arjun couldn't fulfill his daily deliveries, which meant no income for his family. The crowdfunding campaign had raised enough money to replace it, but the process of getting the funds transferred took longer than expected. In the meantime, Arjun borrowed a neighbor's old bicycle, but it was slow and unreliable, making his already grueling job even harder. To make matters worse, some opportunistic individuals began taking advantage of his newfound fame. A local businessman approached him, offering to sponsor a reality show based on his life story, but only if Arjun agreed to portray himself as someone who had risen from poverty. When Arjun politely declined, the man shrugged and said, "Suit yourself. Most people would kill for this chance." Arjun walked away, feeling conflicted. He didn't want to exploit what happened for personal gain, but he also worried about how he'd provide for his family without steady work. Despite these struggles, moments of kindness reminded Arjun why humanity still held so much beauty. Strangers continued to reach out, sending messages of encouragement and small donations to help his family. A group of schoolchildren pooled their pocket money to buy groceries for his household, leaving the bags at his doorstep with a note that read, "From future heroes to a real one." Even Rohan and Mira stayed in touch, checking up on him regularly and ensuring he knew they were deeply grateful. One evening, as Arjun sat on the steps of his building, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, he reflected on everything that had happened. Fame hadn't solved his problems, it had created new ones, but it had also shown him the power of collective goodwill. People who didn't know him had gone out of their way to support him, proving that compassion existed even in the most unexpected places. His thoughts drifted to Mira and her unborn child. Saving her had been an instinctive act, something he believed anyone else would have done in his place. Yet, here he was, receiving accolades and gifts simply for doing what felt right. It made him wonder, why did acts of kindness often seem so rare in today's world? Shouldn't helping others be the norm rather than the exception? As night fell, Arjun resolved to keep moving forward. Life might throw curveballs, but he had faced tougher challenges before. What mattered most was staying true to himself, not letting fame or criticism change who he was. After all, he thought, real heroes aren't defined by applause or recognition. They're defined by the quiet courage they show when no one is watching, and by the ripples of goodness they leave behind. The crowdfunding campaign finally reached its goal, and the funds were transferred to Arjun's account. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of relief. With the money, he purchased a brand new delivery bike, sturdy, reliable, and built to withstand long hours on the road. But instead of keeping all the remaining funds for himself, Arjun made a decision that surprised everyone. He used part of the donations to start something bigger. Inspired by the generosity he had received, Arjun wanted to give back to others who were struggling like him. He approached Rohan and Mira with an idea: to create a small delivery service that would employ people from his community, especially those who had fallen on hard times. There are so many people out there working day and night just to survive, Arjun explained. If we can help even a few of them earn a decent living, wouldn't that be worth it? Rohan and Mira loved the idea and offered to support him however they could. Together they helped Arjun register the business, which he named Sahara Delivery, a nod to the Hindi word for support. The name carried deep meaning for Arjun. It symbolized not just financial assistance, but also emotional solidarity. Within days, word spread through the neighborhood, and soon, several individuals lined up to join Arjun's team. There was Deepak, a single father trying to raise 2 young daughters after losing his wife. Reena, a widow whose sewing work barely covered her rent. And Karim, a teenager eager to learn new skills and support his aging grandparents. Arjun trained his new employees personally, teaching them everything he knew about navigating the city efficiently, handling customer requests politely, and maintaining their bikes. He emphasized the importance of kindness and reliability, reminding them that every delivery wasn't just about dropping off food, it was about bringing a smile to someone's face. We may not have much, he told his team during one of their meetings, but we can still make a difference in people's lives. Meanwhile, Rohan and Mira continued to express their gratitude in meaningful ways. When Mira gave birth to a healthy baby boy, she and Rohan kept their promise. They named him Arjun Jr. They invited Arjun to the hospital to meet the newborn, and the moment left him speechless. Holding the tiny bundle in his arms, he felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite put into words. It wasn't just pride or happiness. It was a profound sense of connection, as though the threads of fate had woven their lives together permanently. As news of Arjun's initiative spread, more people began supporting Sahara Delivery. Customers specifically requested their services, knowing that their orders contributed to a greater cause. Local businesses offered discounts on supplies, while volunteers designed flyers and social media posts to promote the startup. Even some of Arjun's former critics softened their stance, admitting that his actions had inspired them to rethink their own roles in helping others. But perhaps the most touching gesture came from Mira herself. On Arjun Jr.'s naming ceremony, she stood before the gathering of friends and family and shared a heartfelt speech. When I think about that day, the fire, the smoke, the fear, I don't remember the flames, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I remember Arjun's calm presence, his unwavering determination to save us. He didn't just rescue my life. He gave our family a future. And now, through this little boy, we hope to carry forward the same spirit of courage and compassion. Her words moved everyone to tears, including Arjun, who sat quietly in the corner, overwhelmed by the love surrounding him. That evening, as fireworks lit up the sky to celebrate the arrival of Arjun Jr., he realized something important. True fulfillment didn't come from material wealth or recognition. It came from knowing that your actions had touched someone else's life in a way that created ripples far beyond what you could imagine. For Arjun, this was only the beginning. With Sahara delivery up and running, Arjun's life began to transform in ways he had never imagined. What started as a small initiative quickly grew into a thriving community effort. People from all walks of life supported the service, not just because it was efficient and reliable, but because they admired the values it stood for. Customers often left notes of appreciation along with their payments, thanking the team for their hard work and dedication. Some even tipped generously, knowing that their contributions helped not only Arjun but also his employees and their families. The impact of Sahara delivery extended far beyond financial stability. For Deepak, Reena, Kareem, and the others who joined Arjun's team, it became a lifeline, a chance to rebuild their lives after facing hardships that once seemed insurmountable. Deepak was finally able to afford school supplies for his daughters, while Reena used her earnings to move into a safer apartment. Kareem, who had initially been unsure about whether he could handle the job, blossomed under Arjun's mentorship. He learned valuable skills and gained confidence, dreaming of one day starting his own business. Arjun himself found joy in watching his team succeed. Every time someone shared good news, a promotion at another job, a child excelling in school, or simply having enough money to celebrate Diwali without worry, it filled him with pride. He realized that success wasn't measured by how much you achieved individually, but by how many lives you touched along the way. His mother often joked that he had become the unofficial mayor of the neighborhood, always looking out for everyone else before himself. As word of Sahara delivery spread, Arjun received invitations to speak at local schools and community events. At first he hesitated, feeling uncomfortable being labeled as an inspiration. But when he saw the eager faces of young students listening intently to his story, he understood the importance of sharing his journey. Life will throw challenges your way, he told them during one talk. Sometimes it might feel like the world is against you, but remember this: kindness is stronger than fear, and courage is more powerful than despair. If each of us does our part, no matter how small, we can create something beautiful together. His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about empathy and resilience among both children and adults. Teachers reported seeing positive changes in students' attitudes, with many inspired to start small acts of kindness in their own communities. A group of teenagers even launched a campaign to clean up nearby parks, crediting Arjun's speech as their motivation. Back home, Priya continued to excel in her studies. Fueled by her brother's example, she often accompanied him on deliveries, during weekends learning the ropes and helping wherever she could. Her dream of becoming a teacher felt closer than ever, thanks to Arjun's sacrifices and unwavering belief in her potential. Their bond grew stronger with every passing day, and Arjun cherished these moments knowing that family was the foundation of everything he did. Even Rohan and Meera remained close friends, regularly inviting Arjun and his family over for meals. Watching little Arjun Jr. grow brought immense joy to everyone involved. The toddlers' laughter echoed through their gatherings, reminding them of the miracle that had brought them together. Meera often teased Arjun, saying, "You're officially part of our family now, whether you like it or not." To which he would laugh and reply, "I wouldn't have it any other way." Through it all, Arjun stayed grounded. Despite the accolades and opportunities that came his way, he refused to lose sight of what truly mattered, making a difference in the lives of those around him. Fame had faded, leaving behind a legacy of compassion and perseverance. And though challenges still arose, late-night breakdowns, difficult customers, and occasional setbacks, they no longer felt insurmountable. With his team by his side and his family cheering him on, Arjun faced each obstacle with renewed strength. One evening, as he sat on the steps outside his home watching the stars twinkle above, Arjun reflected on how far he'd come. From a struggling delivery boy with nothing but a battered bike to a leader inspiring change in his community, his journey had been anything but ordinary. Yet he knew this wasn't the end. There were still people to help, dreams to nurture, and stories to write. As long as there was breath in his body, Arjun vowed to keep moving forward, one act of kindness at a time. Years passed, and Arjun's life continued to evolve in ways that were both fulfilling and humbling. Sahara Delivery had grown into a well-known name across the city, recognized not just for its efficiency, but also for its commitment to uplifting others. The business expanded beyond food deliveries, branching into courier services and partnerships with local artisans to promote handmade goods. Arjun ensured that every decision reflected the core values he believed in: compassion, integrity, and community. Deepak, Reena, Kareem, and the rest of the team became more than employees. They were family. They celebrated festivals together, shared meals during tough times, and supported one another through personal struggles. When Deepak's daughter won a scholarship to a prestigious school, the entire team pooled resources to buy her new books and uniforms. When Kareem decided to pursue his dream of opening a small repair shop, Arjun helped him secure a loan and even designed a flyer to advertise the grand opening. These moments of connection reminded everyone involved that success wasn't about individual achievements, it was about lifting each other up. Arjun's influence reached far beyond his immediate circle. Schools invited him to speak regularly, and his story became part of motivational talks at colleges and corporate events. People admired not only his bravery during the fire rescue, but also his determination to turn adversity into opportunity. He often ended his speeches with a simple yet powerful message: life is unpredictable, and we can't control everything that happens to us. But we can choose how we respond. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change someone's world, including your own. Priya's dreams finally came true when she graduated as a teacher, standing tall in her cap and gown, as their mother wept tears of pride. On that day, Arjun felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment, not because he had achieved fame or wealth, but because he had kept his promise to give his sister a brighter future. As she hugged him tightly after the ceremony, Priya whispered, "You're my hero, Bhaiya. Always have been. Always will be." Those words meant more to him than any award or recognition ever could. Rohan and Meera remained pillars of support, their bond with Arjun stronger than ever. Little Arjun Jr., now a lively 5-year-old, adored his namesake and often tagged along on deliveries, giggling as he sat perched on the back seat of Arjun's bike. One afternoon, while delivering a package, the boy proudly announced to the customer, "This is my Uncle Arjun, he's a superhero." The comment made Arjun laugh, but it also filled him with gratitude for the child who carried his name, for the friends who stood by him, and for the life he had built despite all odds. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Arjun found himself sitting outside his modest home once again. This time, however, things were different. His bike, a shiny new model, rested nearby, ready for the next day's work. Inside, laughter echoed as his mother cooked dinner while Priya tutored neighborhood kids in math. Across town, Rohan and Meera prepared for bedtime stories with their son. And somewhere in the distance, the hum of Sahara delivery bikes buzzed through the streets, carrying hope alongside parcels. Arjun thought about the journey that had brought him here, the hardships, the sacrifices, and the moments of pure joy. Life hadn't been easy, but it had taught him invaluable lessons. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to act despite it. Wealth wasn't measured in money. It was found in relationships and shared experiences. And legacy wasn't about being remembered. It was about leaving the world better than you found it. As he looked up at the stars twinkling above, Arjun smiled softly. Somewhere out there among the constellations lay infinite possibilities. For now, though, he was content knowing that he had done his part, spreading kindness, inspiring others, and proving that even the smallest actions could create ripples of change. With a deep breath, he rose to his feet, ready to face whatever tomorrow held. After all, the best stories are never truly finished. They live on in the hearts of those they touch.